There we go. All right.
Sick.
How
Hi
is
guys.
it going today, Scott Flanders?
Hey Steven, how you doing, bro?
It's good to be here with you today.
You too.
It's always nice to get to live stream with you. It's not something that we get to do too often because you're a busy man doing courses and whatnot, teaching people over summer sessions and everything. But today we're lucky
Been a
enough.
busy one.
Yeah.
And like you just noted, I got engaged over this summer. And so that has been a really big, big change in my life, and it's been super awesome. And that has been like my number one priority this summer is just figuring out, making that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, see this tag that's on screen right here, guys. You can go give Scott your guys' best wishes on that post over there. It'll be pretty clear immediately which post is the one where he got engaged. But today you're going to be taking us through the process that you have outlined in your new photo bashing course.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not exactly like a new process, but it's new for me, and I think the way I've been doing it is somewhat on the unique side. Um, it's a combination of all the same two-tone silhouette stuff that I've been doing over the years that I think works really good for initial sketching and idea generation. But then more recently, I've been combining it with let me see with just photo textures, just really simple photo textures. Taking a lot of imagery from museums, from like articulated animal skeletons and skulls, from everything from like deer antlers to giant sloth skeletons to Neanderthal skeletons and all kinds of stuff, really. And it's just pushed. I feel like it's pushed my work, especially for horror concept art, which I've been doing a lot more of that recently over the last couple of years on a few projects. And it's just added something different, spiced up my workflow. It's helped me work really quickly, helped me bring a bit more visual interest to focal points. And it's just kind of livened things up for me. I mean, I've talked about this kind of thing before to students many times, the importance or the need for like constant rejuvenation or finding ways to maintain or nourish your creativity so you can do this thing over the long haul. And I try to practice what I preach in that regard. And this stuff I've been doing here, this like photo bashing plus shape carving, has really just, I don't know, it's got me excited. It's brought something new to my workflow that's been getting some interesting results, and it's allowed me to lean into it. I'll usually refer to as designing from abstraction. I've mentioned that term to a lot of my students. It's in the Monster Lab course. We talk about that idea. It's not appropriate for every subject matter, but for body horror, monsters, like mutation, that kind of stuff, it's perfect. It's right on the money. So yeah, I'm going to show off some of those techniques. I started something here. I like to warm up before I do live streams and things, just to work out the butterflies and figure out what the heck I'm going to do for the day, so we don't spend too much time, doing that. So I'm doing this dinosaur mutant guy. I took some kind of early hominid skull, a triceratops skull, and a giant sloth skeleton, and have begun to mash those together, and we'll develop it over the course of the next hour or so or whatever.
Okay. Yeah. So for those of you who probably already have seen Scott on Proko before, one of the things that he has indicated or shown us in the past was this rapid iteration process for designing something with a strong silhouette, considering those as part of a team for game design and some other like team groups like that. This is just an extension of that with more latitude to get some free weathering, some of the complexities that before in the previous process that you showed using the lasso and everything, you would have to be a little bit more manual.
Yeah, I do it all manual. And, in that course, all the art is more stylized. So it's more, I've had this interesting, what I see as a kind of interesting career arc, where I spent time at Turtle Rock Studios that was my first gig. And we worked on this game Evolve, and that was very realistic, like AAA, high fidelity of detail, tons of detail, a lot of realism. And so I picked up some skills there, and more of my interests and strengths were leaning towards realism, not totally realistic, but more leaning that way. And then I went and spent some time at Riot, and most of you guys know Riot's like really highly stylized, and I tried to do some of that, and went down that road, and that affected my art. And then when I left Riot and did this course with Stan, the Monster Lab course, I mean, you guys will see all the creatures done for that. It was a cast of these pumpkin monster guys. We were talking about, the importance of being able to generate across one theme. And we took that idea of pumpkins and we came up with a bunch of different creature or character archetypes. But you'll see that art is very stylized and very simple or cartoony. And, it has a very particular use case. You can only use it in certain ways. And then I started working on a couple other projects over the last couple of years where I'm going back to the realism. And so I found, like, right off the bat, some of my first batches of concepts I turned into the client, that all that stylized stuff I'd been doing at Riot and kind of gotten, it sort of got like set in my ways, got in a rut. It was just too simple. It wasn't like hardcore enough. I needed more metal. And there was a couple other artists I worked with, and I can't give away too much, but a couple other like really talented artists I worked with that I just noticed. I was looking at what they were doing and they were really kicking ass. And I was like, I think texture is like what I need. Like, I need to bring in more texture and visual noise to my work in order to, just be able to hang and to be able to be useful. And so it's kind of around it. It's, there's more to it than that, but eventually I figured out that there was a way I could photo bash that still felt consistent with the way I like to work, which was this two-tone, basically two tones of gray, like light and dark, sort of the no tan thing, or a slice of that no tan idea. And I found out that I could convert these, convert them to two-tone. I guess it just hadn't occurred to me before, or it had seemed more like a faux pas or like a no-no to do that kind of thing. When I was younger and in art school, anyone who was photo bashing was like a loser. We're like, oh, you want to draw it all yourself, bro? Like, you're a loser. And then now in the age of AI, it's like photo bashing seems pretty chill.
Yeah, it seems way more legitimate now, right?
Yeah.
By comparison to prompt generation.
For real. And so I don't know. And also, I'm just getting older, and I've got a lot of projects going on. I've got a little boy, and just life is different. And I feel I'm sort of less concerned with like being a purist, basically.
Yeah.
And I just want to make things that are cool and serve, help solve the problem. And I just want to do things that I like and I'm proud of, and they're useful. I just want to be a fucking professional concept artist, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't really care if I'm doing it exactly in the most pure hand-drawn, whatever way.
Yeah, I think it's a real thing. Anyone out there who would be grumpy about someone using a pretty standard set of tools to do quick iteration, they can piss off.
Stillskin is a grumpy.
Yeah, just being grumpy for no reason. So just in case you guys were curious and you have seen any of Scott's lessons in the past and you liked what you saw, but you never got those courses, this course, this brand new one, as well as the Monster Lab course that Scott did mention, are both 20% off for a limited time. Just go ahead and go try to get that now. And if you're watching it as a VOD later, reach out to me and we'll see if we can still get you that discount price.
Yeah, do it, man. I put this together. I'd begun to share some of these techniques on Instagram through some reels, and one of them went like really viral for me, relatively viral. And I was doing some thinking, and I was like, I had like a sort of epiphany or something. Or I had been working on another course, like this other project that I probably will release at some point in the future. But it occurred to me in that moment, like I was getting a lot of positive feedback about sharing these techniques. And I was working on this totally other thing that I was going to be releasing this fall. And then it occurred to me that I was going to be doing a kind of a business or marketing no-no, where it's like I had my audience telling me what they wanted, and I was going to serve them something entirely different. They're saying like, oh, we're interested in what you're doing here, Scott, with this photo bashing. And then I was going to be like, but don't you want to see me sculpt monsters? Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? And it just kind of occurred to me like, wait a second, Scott, why don't you just go make why don't you just go make a tutorial about this thing that everyone seems interested in right now?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, that's a good idea, dude.
Go where the audience wants.
Well, I don't know. It's just not something. I'm not always. I don't always catch on to that stuff right away. It's not where my head's at. But this time, I tried to go make something that I thought would be useful and people might be interested in, and share some techniques that people seemed excited about. And I put that together and I put it up on Gumroad. And but now I think I really like the idea of having it up on Stan's platform. He just says, there's just so much activity over there, and it's really trusted, and it'll be up there like forever as long as Proko.com exists. You'll be able to access these videos and stuff. So it made a lot of sense to me to partner with Stan, and Stan was gracious enough to help me out and get it up on there. So I'm pretty excited, and it literally launched it went up like yesterday, right, or day before.
It did. Yeah. It just went up. So let's if we're a brand new person, we have never seen you do any of these techniques before. Let's start it. Let's see what happens here. So
Okay.
you open up the Photoshop doc.
Yeah, I opened up my doc, and first thing I did was I created a silhouette. So silhouette is one of I think one of the best ways to design, just one of the simplest. Focus on primary shapes, your 1-2 read. I came in here, and in this case, I didn't really draw a silhouette because it wasn't necessary. I found this photograph of a skeleton of a giant ground sloth, this like Megatherium or something like that. There's a couple different more popular, not more well-known species of ground sloths here. Shasta's ground sloth or Jefferson's ground sloth or whatever. Big ass ground sloth. And I took that, and it had a good pose that I liked, a bit of 3/4. It's got, a little bit of action to it. So I thought it would make a good base. So I'll show you guys one way to do this here. Okay. I need a silhouette. I need something to start with. So I'm going to take that, go down to go to select and to select subject. And select subject's pretty powerful tool in Photoshop. It literally just grabs, what it perceives to be the core information in the image. Then I'm going to press Control C and Control V. So that's copy and paste. So I have the selection, copy, paste, and now I've isolated that away from the background. Okay. Then the next thing I need to do is a couple things. I could clean up that silhouette, that shape using my lasso tool. Go through in here and cut out those bars that are in the background. That's useful. But the next thing I need to do is convert it into this two-tone image. Okay, now there's a handful of ways you could do this, depending on what software you're using or what your priorities are. I created a shortcut that's included in this tutorial. If you guys pick this up, there's a shortcut. You just double click on it. It'll automatically load into your actions window in Photoshop. You can see that right here. Okay, if I go down to this, and then I just go press play, it will run that action. And what it is doing is turning it into a two-tone image. I don't know if I should spend all the time going through all this, because it does take a little bit of time and it's a bit boring doing it by hand.
It's okay. I think that if
in the tutorial I go through there's 3 ways you can do it, and I show them off. But here I'm just going to use this action, which is basically it's using threshold tool. Okay, let me show you. I'll do it again.
And we will have a free video with Scott, I believe, in the future from this course.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good candidate for it. So
okay. But I'll show you. Here's a more manual way to do it. Okay, it's slower. So I've duplicated this layer. I'll just do it one time, but I won't do it again because it's kind of slow and boring to see me do it again and again and again. So it's converted this layer to a threshold. It's applying a threshold filter to it that's turning it into a black and white image. And what's cool about it is you can get this control using the threshold tool. Because say you're bringing in an image that is already at this the local values are very dark in the image, then when you go to apply threshold, it may look something like this, where it's just really dark and you're not seeing much. Or if the image is really light, and there's a lot of really light local values, it might look really blown out, and then you're not really going to get much information. You want something right in the middle. You want something like this where some form reads, okay? I'm going to take that threshold adjustment layer and flatten it down onto my sloth. Now you notice I have 2 versions of the layer right here. I have the one where I have applied threshold and the one where I have not. Now I'm going to set this one to multiply. Now remember, this is just one way you could do this. Okay,
Mhm.
set this to multiply, and then I could layer lock or pixel lock the one beneath it. And I'm going to eyedropper this value of gray that I'm using here. And then I'm just going to paint that in and collapse down. But you will notice, in this case, the values are not consistent because the blacks are not consistent with the darks I have in my sketch above. So you'd have to adjust that. This is where this can get kind of time consuming, and why having some shortcuts set up make it easier.
Yeah, it's just a matter of respecting your own time,
Yeah. So now it's dark and ready to go, and I just literally took a Triceratops skull from, where was it? Right here. And I did the same thing. I grabbed this Triceratops skull. I'll make this one invisible back here. We'll kind of start fresh. And then I'll fast forward to the one I was working on, just so you kind of see how I got this going.
Yeah.
Take this. Select subject. Grab that, run my action.
And Bob's your uncle.
Yeah, put it on there. But it's not just as easy as cutting and pasting. I mean, it's definitely, that's the power of it, is that it can speed things up. But you'll notice, immediately we have a tangent, we have some overlap that isn't good, right? So I have to cut out this arm. I probably want to pull back on these like vertebrae here on the sloth. So I have some space here to bring that on and start moving it around and adjusting it, to get it going in a direction that I like. And then, I want to have something. I think I want to have this arm like touching down to the ground. So I'm going to grab that, cut it, paste it, scale it up. And then this is that. I'm not sure what kind of hominid this is, like Denisovan, Neanderthal. I don't really know. Some kind of caveman. I'm going to take this skull, exact same thing, select subject, run my action, bring it on here, and then I'm going to do this sort of fusion thing where I'm going to take the Triceratops skull, I'm going to smash on the human skull at the front. You'll notice the perspective is off here, but we can use our distort tool and perspective tools to try to blend these things together a little better.
So, and for this, do you find yourself leaning into the idea of some like misshapen wonk kind of things?
Yeah,
being
100%.
Okay because of it?
Yeah, for sure. Because, it's a mutant. It's intended to be a mutant. I teach a class. I've taught it the last couple Octobers, Designing Monsters. Designing Monsters 2023 and then 2024. And it's coming up again in October this year. And every October, it's a different theme. The first time we did, we took what did we do? The first time? Shoot, man, I don't remember. Oh, we took like the classic Universal movie monsters, like the Wolfman and Frankenstein and Dracula and Creature from the Black Lagoon. And then everybody reinvented them in their own way. And artists came up with some like seriously incredible stuff. Guys like Everett Arce, he might be in here, Everett. He did some amazing stuff. Fernando Suarez, Will David. There's some people did some really cool art in there. And
I think I saw Will in here.
Yeah, Will's in here. Yeah, Will's working on he's on my indie game project. He's working with me. He's a really good artist. But yeah, he's good at creatures and stuff too. He's come a long way. He's a young guy who's come a long way. Anyways, last fall we did like classic fantasy monsters, like more like Greek mythology, minotaurs and harpies and gorgon and a lot of that kind of stuff. And this year we're going to do Dino Mutants. The new Jurassic World movie just came out, Jurassic World Rebirth. Remember that came out in the summer? And it was okay. It was an okay movie. But the main premise with the mutant dinosaurs was super sick. There were some designs in there that were awesome, including the Disortus Rex. If you give me a second, I'll show you something.
Yeah, go grab that guy. I want to thank you guys for your questions so far. I know that there are a few here that are talking about what is an ideal reference or not an ideal reference to use for this. I'm going to end up asking that one in here. I think it's a very good question.
Going
All right,
back.
what you got?
Okay, I just want to show you this. This was the I just got this for my son, like, because I know I'm going to teach this workshop this fall, and my son always gets into my workshops. He's 10 now, and he follows along, and he's so creative and fun. And so I got him the big mutant dino from the new movie, and he was so excited. It literally just arrived yesterday.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it's so crazy, dude. It's so
That's nuts.
Anyways.
I love that it looks like one of your designs.
I know,
like the shape of it and everything.
For real. Yeah, actually, like there's definitely some, you know, anytime you put that big, like, sort of like bloated, I don't know, like bloated fetus head on something, anytime you do beluga head, it's like a look that a lot of guys have done, and I've done it sometimes too. Anyways, I really like that design. That was Gareth Edwards who directed that film, and it was fucking awesome, that T-Rex. They did it, so I'm just gonna geek out for a minute, guys. I think they did it. I think they said they designed it so it looked like you had a regular T-Rex, but then they like added stuff to it. Like they literally just took the silhouette of Tyrannosaurus Rex and then slapped on additional musculature and attachments and stuff.
Yeah.
So you can see like the little remaining vestigial T-Rex hands here, but then they added this larger, more like quadrupedal arms here, more like a bear or something like that. And then they took that Tyrannosaurus skull and they put that big crazy encephalitis, you know, bloated cranium right here. But for all intents and purposes, it's still built on top of a T-Rex chassis. Anyways.
Yeah, like what are they, the rat rods or whatever? It's the rat rod of dinosaurs.
There we go.
Yeah. I do want to also point out, no one has said anything about this in this chat, and you guys are all so very kind for doing it. But Scott, we're basically wearing the same thing right now.
Oh wow, look at you! But you're like a handsome devil version, and I'm like,
how dare you,
41-year-old dad version, dude.
No.
That's funny, dude.
I think we're looking very similar at the moment.
That's pretty funny.
But yeah, so we had some good questions, I think, from people here in the chat that I do want to bring up. I think it's incredibly important.
Okay.
So the process that you've been talking about so far is one that you get tons of use out of.
Yeah.
You've developed it and you've made it work.
I don't know if I've developed it, but it's definitely one I've been using to some real. I think I've been using it in a cool way recently.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I think you have found how this technique that was a pre-existing technique for some people, and how it works very beautifully with your pre-existing processes.
Yeah, that's true. Works good with Shapecarving.
But there are some things that you have to already have as kind of some built-in knowledge in some ways.
Yeah, that's true.
Joey Rowe in the chat was asking a couple different things. How do you go about deciding what would make a good candidate to photo bash with? What do you look for, and what would make a bad candidate for this?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joey.
Let's see. Let's take it as what makes a good reference for this, and what makes a bad reference for this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look through. I have this like preset folder that I've been using a lot on some Jimmo. My dog has got fleas. Come here, buddy. Come here.
Oh, I know.
We got some fleas, and I have to get him. I don't know. I have to get him another shot or whatever. He's like reached his 3-month threshold, and now he's back here.
Oh, is it for the fleas thing or for just general itchiness?
Just for the fleas. Just for the fleas thing.
Because we have to get our dog. He's allergic to like everything, so he has to get this special little shot once every like 6 months.
Yeah, this is
Look at that. He's got the same forehead as
Gizmo. He does. Me and my son were saying that, dude. It's a distortus pup, dude. It's so funny. Okay, so let's talk about the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one thing. That select subject tool definitely struggles if an image has a lot of complex value structure and imagery going on within it. Like it's probably going to have a hard time identifying a particular character in a crowd. Say if you're trying to pull out like a particular individual really fast, that's not going to be possible if there's like 50 people in there, you know? Or say like this bull. This is like a good example. Say I want to make like a Minotaur guy. And I do this in the tutorial, the Designing Grimdark Mutants tutorial. take something like this, and you'll notice the bull, like he's a dark bull. It's like a black, like a Spanish fighting bull type bull. Okay. I go use a select subject, isolate him. So look at that. Already it kind of, for some reason, it struggled there. Excuse me, dog. Let me go here.
And so you come in through, you modify it.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to modify the selection, you know? So it still helps to have, like, in all this stuff, all these like tricks, it still helps. You have to know how to draw. It helps to know some animal anatomy. You know, this is acting as a kind of crutch for me, or a base, having this giant sloth skeleton that I can build on top of, but having some knowledge of the bone structure of these creatures to begin with definitely sets you up to have more success when you go to use these techniques. You know, and same thing when I'm using my lasso tool, like having some familiarity with lasso tool, having used it a lot, done a lot of the shape carving stuff, makes this like really, you know, easy when I want to go in here and make selections and adjust them. So I got this bull, but now check it out. If I go do my my action here, my preset action, look at that. This is what I was talking about earlier, where I've run that action, and because it's already, you know, predominantly darker local values, when you squint at that bull, it's just going to turn black. Okay, so that's not helpful. So one thing you could do, again, we have to go through it. We have to go through that process more manually in this case. So I go to use threshold filter, and then I pull back so I get a bit more information there. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, you know, we could go too far the other way, and it's going to get too blown out. But let's go to like here. It's not going to be a sort of foolproof image here, though. This one is like really not the best candidate for this stuff. And so I have used it. I used it directly. I'll show you. I used it in the course to kind of show you guys how to do it. So I've got it, collapsed it. I've got my darks and my midtones here, and it does have some sort of structural read. I can see that there's a sort of side plane. Watch when you squint at this. There's a kind of side plane. I can see the eyes, cheekbones, ears. I can see some stuff there. But it's still pretty, very, very abstract, and it looks like a blown out photo. You know, there's work to be done. When I go here, just a moment, pull up the art from the tutorial, actually.
Yeah, I think so. In this situation, you're kind of, you know, that something that doesn't have a broad range of values, you're going to fill that in with maybe another reference.
Another reference, or literally just hand drawing it. Like in this case, that exact bull head, that's what this is right here. I took that exact head I just showed you guys, and you see me, because there's so much dark on this side of the head, you see me going through and drawing in some bounce light, some light from the environment out here that's lighting up this far side of the face. You see that? Those little marks right there? I've gone back in and just worked over this whole thing.
Okay. No, this makes sense. Yeah. And then you get to kind of pull what you want out of it, which is what you do in pretty much everything in art. This is just a different method.
Part of the point here is just generating ideas quickly, getting something to build on top of quickly, where it's just, you know, harder and takes more time to go build something up from scratch. And sometimes there's like a certain certain something about some of these images, or certain like a pose, some personality, power about the image that gives you, like, brings in some charisma to your concept immediatally. And that bull had some swagger, you know, rather than me try to figure out how to like make a bull have swagger. It's like, well, fucking let's take that bull. He's already got that swagger, and then I'll work him into my image. It's
kind of like the like, so in movies and script writing or something, you know, there'll be these times where if you're describing a movie, you could be like, oh, it's like it's like a Western in space, you know, and it gives you this jumping off point. It doesn't mean that it's any sort of like weaker or anything for you using a shortcut to establish some stuff that isn't the main focus of your ideation in that moment.
Yeah,
you get to kind of just like use it, like you said, as a springboard to then drill in with everything else that you want to do and add after that initial little base is built.
You know, and I eventually, at a certain point, I have to go in and start drawing. I have to
Mhm.
start going in and drawing and doing what you'd usually, think of as the shape carving. Before I do that, I'm going to darken my background a bit because I really like using white during my sketching phase. I just, for things like teeth and eyeballs, sometimes claws, just sort of depends. I'll kind of jokingly refer to them as glowy bits a lot of times. I use this like nib pin. It's like a crow quill tool here. I like it. I can get a really good human type incisor with it, with a little bit of low pressure and then increased pressure. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
And you get this kind of root and then the rest of the tooth. So I'll use something like that. I'll have to go back and doctor them. But I just think it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it draws your attention. Scott, could you take us through? So let's say let's show just like a nice little succinct thing
Sure.
of you started with this like Triceratops dinosaur skull, this sloth, and then show us this and show us the detail level that you've got in there afterwards.
The detail level I've gotten here afterwards. So you want me to like go backwards, like through? What are you saying here?
Yeah, so let's just like show the dinosaur skull, the skeleton
by itself.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to even be on this. It can be like as your initial photos that you have in your folder.
Yeah, okay. I'll show you.
Just as a reminder for anyone.
Yeah, who's coming in right now. So I started. I didn't start with like my typical gestural sketch or silhouette, because in this case, I knew that I could find like an articulated skeleton of some base animal. And I really like a giant ground sloths because, for one thing, they don't exist anymore. So it's a very, it feels familiar, but it's somewhat alien at the same time because there are no existing real world analogs. There's nothing, a two-toed and three-toed tree sloths. Really, their skeletal structure is nothing like this. These things were huge and just immensely heavy and muscular, gigantic bones, like some of the thickest bones you can see, besides like on an elephant, mastodons and stuff like that. So it has this, and it's sort of upright, sloping, just really makes a great reference for things like monsters and kaiju and stuff like that, just big mutant creatures. So I start there, and I knew that would work because I have familiarity with this animal. So I like this pose. It had some personality. I grabbed that. Then I found this Triceratops skull that I liked. I'm a really big fan of the ceratopsian group in general. Super diverse group of animals. Just let me find some. I'll show you just how they're just so cool. Ceratopsian skulls. They're like the equivalent to like bison, bovids today. Things like cattle all across our world. There are tons of diverse forms of cattle. And ceratopsians filled that same ecological niche, and they have all these crazy different oh dang, it's too big, all these different diverse forms to their head crests. I mean, look at these all across the planet, a lot of really interesting ones. So I've always liked these, thought they were really cool, probably my favorite dinosaurs. So I thought, what the heck, we'll use one of those. And then I want to make them a little more mutated and creepy. I mentioned I'm a big fan of that Jurassic World, the new Rebirth film, mostly the dinosaur designs in it, and specifically the Disortus Rex. So that's kind of where my head's at, but I want to like push it a little bit further. And that's going to be the theme of my new monster design workshop this fall is dino mutants. And we're going to push them a little less naturalistic and a bit more body horror, Island of Dr. Moreau kind of stuff. I actually started reading that book to my son last night in preparation for this coming workshop. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that book by H.G. Wells, Island of Dr. Moreau, but it's like super cool, incredible.
It's a very good one.
Yeah, very cool. And so that's informing the stuff I'm doing here is like I'm playing with combining human anatomical elements and dinosaur. And then I'm using this giant sloth as my substructure to build on top of. And it's in the beginning, it's literally just like, let me pull up some more. Hold on, Cougars. In the beginning, you're just kind of slapping things together. Like in these sketches here, I took some skeletons from Homo sapiens, from Neanderthal, multiple different sets of deer antlers. These are all, I think, mule deer, West Coast, mule deer from the United States. And then I took horse teeth. And then I'm mashing all these different parts together in different combinations, and then took a ball peen hammer, like just taking different photos. But at a certain point, I have to start drawing over and integrating. But initially, you're just slapping these different parts together. Really simple. And then you integrate them afterwards. So let's do it one more time for those of you who are kind of just hopping in, or maybe you're interested. I'm going to take that giant sloth skeleton. I'm going to bring it over, use my select subject tool to isolate it from the background, copy paste it over here. I'm going to do the same thing with that skull. Grab the skull, select subject to isolate it from the background, control copy, control paste, bring it over. And let's see here, I'm going to minimize these so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go to my skeleton here, cut out some parts that I don't want. Hey, I think, what the heck? My lasso tool is acting funny. Okay, there we go. What the heck? I might have to put my dog down, sorry guys. Hey buddy, I think you're messing up your cousin.
You're hitting the shift key.
Some stuff like Pearl sometimes I put it down. He really wants to stay up here. Okay. There we go.
Just isolating some parts that you will and won't need.
Yeah, exactly. And then just bringing that skull over and start to put it in place. And then, there's other stuff we could do here, like we could use puppet warp tool, or we could just grab it and rotate this, bring it up a bit. So maybe it feels, like a little bit of a better fit for this skull there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could take that skull and shrink it down a bit.
And then at a point, it seemed like the Triceratops kind of skull ended up in this mix as well.
Yeah, I'll bring that back. I just want to show you guys like how sort of simple initially it can be. You're just kind of putting these things together. It's like a mock-up, like a rough draft. Just taking these different parts and thinking about them, moving them around before you really commit to them. Let's take the Triceratops skull. Select subject, bring it over, move it into place, then bring my skull over. Where's the skull? And probably the skull I'm going to put right here, more like on the bridge of the face, I think, like right there, something like that. And I'm going to set it to a layer mask so that I can sort of push some parts back, let it blend into the dinosaur face a little bit more. And then I'm going to take this part of the dinosaur skull, isolate it, shrink it. Something like that. Okay, so now I've got all these pieces together and I want to unify them further. I'm literally just going to collapse them together, and then I'm going to convert them into this two-tone format using this action that I've preset for you guys. It comes in the tutorial, but it's really not that complex. You can just use the threshold tool and then collapse it. So now I've got a base to work with.
Yeah.
And then from there, I can start to suggest some more like connective tissue and, build up some quads and build up some pieces of the projections of the vertebrae. What is like these sort of spines.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Then you just modify from there. There was the one that you're kind of recreating right now. Can you show that one and show the level of detail you've got in there?
Sure. Yeah, this one's a little bit further along. And I've started to bring in teeth. So teeth and eyes. And sometimes, I'm not like thinking too hard. I just sort of started to put this eye socket thing. I'll probably get rid of that actually, but I'm just going to leave it for now.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Look at that guy.
It's got these teeth. And a lot of times I will go in here and cut into some of these teeth after I've laid them in. just makes it feel a bit more chaotic, like he's lost some teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Chip some of them out.
Yeah, because if a predator has all of their teeth still, they're not a good predator.
Yeah, he's not really trying that hard in life. Still got all his teeth.
Or they didn't need the teeth in the first place because their hands are doing all the work.
So I'll kind of start roughing some teeth in, and then there's a kind of a chaotic phase where I'll cut back into it, and where I introduce opportunity for more happy accents. And this whole approach is really good for happy accents, setting up stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we can do, so say we want to make it like look a bit more mutated. Let's take another human skull over here. And I'm going to do something. I want to fuse something in over there, but I need the right perspective or angle on the skull. So I want something that's kind of a little more off to the side. Maybe this guy. Got to rotate it horizontal. I'm going to convert it using my filter. Shrink it down. And I'm sure any of you guys who are like real fans of horror and creatures and stuff, you've probably seen the movie Annihilation.
Dude, I was just going to talk about Jeff Vandermeer.
Yeah. So big time. Like that's, if you like that Annihilation bear, this is your way to make your own Annihilation bears like, really, really quick. That had a big, I really like that. Whoever the concept artist was that did that. That was sick. That was cool. It's a cool,
yeah, absolutely.
Cool design and cool creature. And I love that kind of stuff. That sort of, just look at the, as this you start to get this kind of visual chaos in here, as you have this like other skull that's beginning to emerge out of the side of the one there. Now it's starting to feel kind of cool. I'm still not stoked on these teeth. They're like a little too silly right now. I want them to feel a bit smaller, a little less cartoony. Again, yeah, I'll go in and just cut things back, be kind of aggressive, and then actually like some of those shattered, broken edges that remain, I'm going to leave those, just leave them as in, try not to overthink it. Mm-hmm. At some point, I'll bring in an eye focal point just because it just makes it cooler to connect with, and do this little ring.
Yeah, I think an underutilized thing that people don't think about enough is there's a direct logic to where people look first. It's just built into us. We look at eyes, faces, and hands first, immediately. Playing with those things does so much for you in art.
Yeah, it just gets me going right away. Mm-hmm. Now, now right at the moment, it's just a skeleton. It's kind of just a skeleton, guys. So I need to bring some more like soft tissue, and it's okay if he ends up feeling kind of zombie-ish. I think that works okay in this case. I've been using these like clusters of basically like cow intestines, like different animal intestines. Sorry if it's kind of hardcore or gross for people. My bad. But,
I think
my bad.
If they weren't going to be up for this particular image, they wouldn't be 43 minutes into the rest of this.
I suppose so. That's right. If you're into like horror stuff, yeah, maybe you're okay with that. But yeah, I've been using this a lot. It's just really effective. Just really good. Bring it in there to the side, and I'll set it to a layer mask. And I've been using this like texture brush here, and I'll go adjust the. Oh, whoops. Going to adjust the scale on the texture so I can cut in here
while still matching the kind of level of detail and fidelity that was in
the
stuff.
Yeah, and it kind of like I'm sort of softening edge and just integrating it a bit. It's just beginning to add some additional noise. Starts to feel like guts, and I'm going to build up more. It's just going to be a continual process of building up more and more on top of this thing. And like I mentioned, in the end there's just no getting around the need to draw, or to describe. There's a lot of great designing from abstraction that goes on in a process like this, but also just straight designing and knowing, like what's there and what you're going to make, like being able to visualize it because you've got good references available or because you're very familiar with the subject matter or whatever. That's kind of what you see me doing here. I'm cutting back in, and I know I want this connective tissue that's like stretching side of the cheeks. Coming over there. Let's add some more of musculature. Sometimes then I'll go and just take, like, I really like these. These are kind of, I feel like they're like secret weapons in my toolkit. These apes with alopecia or whatever it is, like they've got a condition where they lose all their hair, and just, you know, there's something very human about it. It's like the closest thing we'll get to like orcs or something. You know, if you know anything about like the history of creature design, you'll know that like before we discovered the great apes, before people were able to document the great apes, like through photography and through specimens, you don't really see things like orcs in our art, things like orcs and goblins. There's just nothing like that because there's no reference point for it. But as soon as we discover them, all of a sudden you see this massive change. And if you look across like all, you know, Pinterest, Google, whatever, any goblin, kobold, orc, minotaur, ogre, troll, whatever, all of them, majority of them have been influenced to some degree by the body structure of apes.
That makes sense to me.
Big, sloping shoulders and head and long arms.
Yeah, and it's nice for what you're looking for a reaction to a mutant creature, because it's just a hair removed from humans.
Yeah.
So you have a basis for reference, but it's also so strong and just different enough in proportions that it strikes that part of us that looks for something that is weird, outside of human, you know?
Yeah. So like here,
something is wrong.
I got these good, you know, there's these good wrinkles in here in the shoulder. So I'm going to grab that, run the filter. But do you see, this is that same issue I mentioned earlier where because the local value of the ape's skin, that pinky gray, is so light already to begin with, when I ran my action, most of it got blown out to like a gray. So I'm going to have to do this the manual way, just again to get more control. So I'm going to increase the darks a bit. Then I collapse it down, set it to multiply, take the layer beneath, which is the same layer. It's the same. I've just duplicated these two. One of them has the threshold filter applied. It is now black and white and set to multiply. That's why you can see the pink beneath it. You're seeing this layer. I'm just walking people through this. And then I'm going to take my brush and fill this layer beneath. What's going on here? Hold on. Sometimes Photoshop is tripping out on me. And one of the workarounds is to save your file, save as. And
I see.
And it's just like a little trick I do to tell Photoshop to shut up. Okay. So I took all that. I've adjusted the values so that they match the rest of the image. Okay, cool. So now I've got it on here, but I don't want it to just cover up everything. I want some of that bone structure to show through. I want some of those ribs to show through. They look cool. Sorry, gosh, I'm getting phone calls and shit. Annoying. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to that. I use this texture tool quite a bit, this texture brush. I drop the scale because I want like the pattern to be a little tighter. And I use it to like mask things out and to push things back a bit. Again, I want to reveal some of these like ribs here.
Yeah, and so like you said here, it wasn't that you were using the brush as an eraser. You were doing it in a non-destructive way with a layer mask down there.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you don't know what you necessarily want fully yet.
Not yet. Yeah, I have like an approximation. I want some of the ribs showing through. There's a lot of back and forth in this process. And you know, you want to like what parts do I want to expose, which parts do I not want to expose.
Is there anything, so the thing that sent us down the path on this one was talking about what was a good and bad reference.
Yeah.
And so what makes a good reference isn't necessarily as bad or as important, I think, as what makes a bad reference. So something was
that's actually probably accurate. Is what makes a bad reference is overexposure in one way or the other. Either too dark local values, too dark in the image, too light in the image. You know, too complex an image with too many variables. You want something. The best images are very simple, more like product photography, where you have, and that's why museums are good. because
Mhm.
museums are typically showing off. There's like a focal image, right, under a light. They're well lit, simple top-down lighting, and they're isolated against a background.
Yeah.
Now you're looking at the skull of whatever ancient human. Now you're looking at the sword that belonged to this king from ancient times, right? Makes really good reference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. For anyone who tries the process on their own while not following along with your course, that's now currently 20% off on proko.com
Word.
slash monster bash. Anyone who's following along with this process or trying to do it, and if they're running into any sort of hurdle, some of that can be about what you do with that the threshold process that you were talking about, or mixing in other references or drawing into those spaces that don't have information. But some of that might also just come down to the reference itself. So for a lot of your references that you've gotten here that you've been using, they are things that have detail, grit, that is revealed by the lighting. Uh, other, some are just about their shapes, like the bullhead that you used earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think another thing that would make a bad thing for you to use for this would be something that just has no detail in it. Like the bones that are in here are great. The head of the Triceratops, if you zoom in on that, you can see all of this like detail and this information in these little pitted places.
Uh-huh.
And you can paint some of that in there, but a lot of the thing that you're doing here is trying to get some of those things for free while iterating.
Yeah, exactly. Get it for free and then you build on top of it.
There was another question in here.
Sure.
Let's see.
Let's look for another cool like Styracosaurus.
Oh, this is perfect. The question I was going to go for was, how do you find these references? Where do you go?
So I'm searching off Google, and most of where I'm pulling from is photography from museums. That's like I think the best. Or, okay, this is a little metal, like a little hardcore, but safe.
Just go to rotten.com.
No, I'm not saying that. Bad,
not that metal.
Not that bad, but I'm looking up. So I don't know if this would make people uncomfortable, but these are like bull carcasses. I'm looking up photos from like slaughterhouses and stuff. Like I'm looking up for like where animal carcasses are refrigerated before they get processed and turned into food. And I'm working on a particular like an indie horror game right now where I'm pulling from a lot of North American species like elk and moose and stuff. And so that's what I've been looking is like where, I've been looking at bodies of elk and moose, and then I would literally pull these elements, like all these isolated muscle elements that have all this nice exposed fascia and fat, and there's just tons of really great information in here.
I wonder, I imagine some other things like, let's say like dissection diagrams and stuff would probably be a large portion of this as well.
Probably. I haven't done that, but I've mostly been looking at like hunting photography, photography from museums. Like I said, this stuff from these processing facilities, stuff from like a veterinary photography, like veterinary like documentation of veterinary cases and stuff. These are horse teeth, close-ups of horse teeth that are unhealthy gums, like unhealthy teeth, but they also make for really sick, crazy monster faces. And I use
absolutely.
those also in the course. You use it on this guy right here. I used it on him. You'll see I use and again I build up over the top, so it's not, and I used it on him too. Yeah, right here, holding the little cigarette in his mouth. But it all gets integrated over time to a degree that, if you do this enough, like you'll have some kind of go-to tricks and techniques and images you'll be using. But the like normal average viewer is not really going to know that, Like here, look, I use part of one of these carcasses right here. And this was kind of a happy accident where I actually had a more defined, more human type musculature in his left arm. But then, and I was going to apply this cattle carcass texture over the top of it and just snap it to the silhouette using like a clipping mask. But I decided, or a layer mask, pardon me. But then I decided when I threw it on that I actually just liked the way it looked all swollen, and I left it as is. I thought it looked kind of interesting.
Yeah, I actually, if you want to poke through those a little bit more, I think people getting to see the final results a little bit would be nice.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, in this case, I was trying to show off like how I would use this to create, what I often think of as like a mutant character. And there's I like this sort of combo, like cyborg combo of organic animal parts. I mentioned Island of Dr. Moreau. I love that story. And then this like cybernetic type stuff, a bit of hard surface or tech, or at least some suggestion of that. Brutal hand weapons.
For the technology aspect of it, did you also use reference to build up some of that as well?
Yes, this is like, I think some kind of like a rocket engine. Like initially it started as some part of a rocket engine that I then built on top of, adding wires and hoses and integrating it into the arm. Yeah, and that stuff is great. Like pulling, again, let me show you my little ref folder here. Stuff like this. My friend Alec Brubaker sent some stuff over to me, just like close-ups of cranes and heavy equipment, earth-moving equipment.
Heck yeah.
Just stuff like this is fantastic. Like that. This is great.
Nice.
I use this. There's an image behind here on my desktop. The workshop I taught this summer, it was all summer long, and we took one theme, like a story theme. We took Old Man in the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. And then over the course of the summer, all the students and myself, we took some of the prompts from the story, which were the old man, the fish, the skiff, which is his boat, and the sharks. And we redesigned them, redeveloped them through our own filter, or whatever sort of theme you wanted to do. And I did this kind of dark, I don't know, I'm not really sure what it is, but this kind of dark sci-fi thing. And you can see like this exact part right here. Imagine, you turn that 80 degrees counterclockwise, and, you see me building this bike on top of it, this like sea bike skiff. You see that?
Yeah.
Or using those intestines here on the side of this creature, and here, these are the ribs of the giant ground sloth right here.
Yeah, like this grimdark Leviathan kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's well, that sounds sick, dude. Good. Yeah, that sounds good. He's like part of this crab carapace on this shark right here, part of it right there, and on this one. This one's less integrated, but
heck yeah. Yeah, no, I like that you, with the process, you're not necessarily just limited to any one type of output even. You can use it for something wildly diverse. Someone can use this easily for designing some like a couch, if they really wanted to. The process isn't limited.
Grimdark couch, bro. Okay, I want to show you guys something really quick. I don't know how long we've been on here, how long we're going to keep going. We're at 1 hour, but I want to show you really quick. I have like a kind of very fast, I like having like a finishing process that allows me, say I got to go pick up my son from school, or I've got somewhere to be, or some other meeting to get into, but so I have to stop, but I'm not quite happy with where I'm at, but I want to have something I feel is cool to show. I have like the following process I'll do. First is I'll go through with that same texture brush, and I'll go hit, well, first I lock the layer, and I go through and I hit like the ends of appendages, because especially with this like horror stuff, it's, not a far stretch to imagine that this thing is like attacking people and, getting covered with gore and stuff like that. I know that's kind of hardcore, but that's what's going on here. And so I'll put, some of this gore at like tips of the horns, like on the hands and fingers, maybe kind of a splash of it going across the head crest or something, across the eye. Then I'll put some at the ends of these spines. Then I'll make the texture brush a little bit tighter and smaller, so I can continue that on the tips of the talons to solidify the silhouette at the end of that shape, to create a more extreme vignette, to basically turn it into a more solid shape. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing again with just solid brush. I'll go away from or I'll change from the texture brush to just a solid brush and paint on there and solidify that. And then I'll go and take the same round brush and do some sort of ropey gore or blood. Sometimes I'll add stuff like that coming, from the jaw. And these are what I would consider, like I hear artists talk about, like big, medium, small. I don't quite like those shapes. I don't like the way they flow up the form, so I'm removing. But this is, when you hear people talk about big, medium, small, what I'm doing here is like what I would consider the small stuff. Some of these really small shapes that help to tell a story and to create a little more impression of reality or of detail. some of these things hanging down.
I put it here in the chat for anyone who's here live. I was curious what everyone here's kind of favorite small details that they add to their pieces as those finishing touches. I'm curious how it differs from person to person here. Because I agree with you that there's the classic idea that you're supposed to work big to small. Start with the big stuff, work to medium, and then small at the end. And it gives you a few different things. You get to lead the eye by only getting detail of any real dynamic presence to areas where you want people to look. And then you also don't mess yourself up by sitting in there like doing every single beard hair when it doesn't matter. No one's going to look that close.
Yeah, I'm definitely not. There's a kind of a balance in terms of like how much detail I'm putting in here. It's more about creating an impression of detail. That's really what I'm more interested in. I really think of a lot of my work as being impressionistic.
That's fair.
In nature. And then I'll do those good old, little rim lights on something like this that really can go a long way towards making something pop and to just increasing, visual interest.
Absolutely.
Really drawing my eye up there.
Yeah, like you pulling out the nose there, that cavity. Yeah, and you get to imply. This is the area where, for you guys, you can see the things that the plane changes and everything that Scott had envisioned for the object that wasn't present there in those two values that you basically had.
Yeah. That's one reason it helps to have your source image is handy too, because that can give you something to use as a reference when you go back and apply things like this. Like you've got some source material that can help inform you. About these forms and how they should be reading.
Yeah, I think there's this thing that goes around every once in a while, makes the rounds in the art community, where every once in a while someone takes issue with people using reference or whatever. They're like, there's no creativity in it. And I think that everything that we've just seen over the last hour and 2 minutes speaks to the exact opposite. That reference 100%. Is just a launching off point.
Yeah, reference is a launching off point. It's very valuable. And, the idea that you can't use reference, it's honestly silly because, the people who aren't using reference, say I wasn't using reference for a lot. I mean, a building on top of literal reference like photos, but a lot of anything that I was making up here, the only reason I'm able to make it up, the only reason anyone who's able to work without reference can do so is because they've developed a very deep understanding through exposure to their, favorite chosen subject matter, usually over a long period of time. They don't need it because it's in their brain. It's like really deeply embedded in their psyche.
Yeah, no, I agree very, very, very much.
At a certain point, I might like come in and make some like really big changes. Like, again, this is where happy accidents occur. So sort of like really shift how something is looking. Maybe I'm not happy with the perspective, or just it's like maybe looking a bit too naturalistic and not exciting enough, so I want to kind of like deviate a bit. And this is where, for me, where I can really spend a lot of time going down the rabbit hole is trying to get things looking quote unquote perfect, but honestly, this is where some of the magic really happens is when I would take maybe too many hours after this initial block end, just noodling and iterating and beginning to do the lateral exploration thing that you guys may have seen me do before, where I'll take something like this and, shrink it down and then duplicate it and duplicate it again and duplicate it again. And then I would take those 4 images and begin to make more aggressive alterations. It's like, okay, what if he had a T-Rex skull instead? What if it had giant, horns that went over like this, or what if there was like a big cut in the crest and it went over that way, or what if he had like a wizard beard? Not that I would do that, but you know what I'm saying? Like I could start to make bigger moves and kind of helps me get out of that, like maybe overstimulated, hyper-focused state where I can get too obsessive about things.
Mhm.
It forces me to zoom out and start focusing on the big picture again. I find that very useful.
Yeah, it's important to get to a spot with something where you don't feel so precious with the thing.
Yeah,
Where you're like, no, but I made these good details. I need them.
yeah, exactly. I have my rim lights just so. It's like, shut up, Scott. Just make it better, dude. Just make it better.
So I put out that question asking what people's favorite small details were to add. We got Beriaru saying glow, especially in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Da saying sometimes they do rim light. I think rim light is a fantastic one. Just don't have it conflict with your shadows, guys. We have other ones in here. Dead SM. My favorite is adding colors to my core shadows. That's fair. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So a little bit of like a colored Terminator line. I like that.
In this case, you could do something. We don't have color here, but what you could do is add texture. More value information to your shadows. You look at a guy like Frank Frazetta in his art, and he's got these really bold shadow shapes. But part of what makes his art not just look like a comic book is the fact that inside of those shadow shapes, there's still information. Look in here, like if you squint at this leg and both these legs really, and this like lower part of the abdominals and stuff, this pit, between the shoulder and the pec over here, all that stuff just turns into black silhouette, or not black, pardon me, not silhouette, just a shape, right? But if you look closely, there is information in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be like especially detailed or accurate information. I think it needs to just be convincing or suggestive information.
Yeah, like on the left side of the thigh there, I guess it was the calf. On the left side of the guy's calf, there's kind of like a wrapping gradient almost to this. Yeah, that's
you can see that part of the shin bone right there. You see that?
Uh-huh.
There's like a bit of shin bone, bit of core shadow, bit of the muscly part of the calf. You can see all these little microforms. This is actually pretty damn descriptive inside the shadow. But there's other ones where I've seen it be a little bit looser,
Yeah, like if you were to break this down into like, let's say something like a 2-value study, like if you were just doing a little thumbnail before you actually made this painting, that would just be all black,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Got a little background on the website there. They're getting fancy. Yeah, so just as a reminder for those of you guys who have just been watching Scott make something awesome for the last hour and 7 minutes, his course that we've been talking about this whole time is currently on sale for 20% off. It's brand new for Proko. It's something that I think isn't necessarily taught in any other kind of like online space that I've seen. Most of the time, people are talking about making something where you paint it in just black and white and then you colorize it or something. Those are pretty standard techniques that everyone is teaching in some way, shape, or form. But something like this that allows you to iterate and make things quickly in a way that allows you to work faster at your actual job and respect your own time is some of the most valuable information that you can get from anyone who's sharing what they've learned over their career. There's no reason that you shouldn't make things easy on yourself. You don't need to have some robot or some AI tool make an entire image for you. People have already figured out how to work faster in the past and have better results than just being the most watered down, homogenized version of everybody else's art that's already existed out there. So I really recommend it to you guys.
Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah,
it's a fun process, guys. It genuinely is really fast. Like, I'm not known for being fast myself. I'm being kind of slow, probably kind of obsessive with my designs and iterations and stuff. So techniques like this really help me out a lot. Just help me get going, slap things down, not be too precious. And they help me relax and have fun. And I talk about this a lot. Like, why the hell are you doing this if you're not having some fun? It's not always going to be fun. Sometimes it's going to be really difficult and not fun. But in general, I'm trying to practice what I preach and stay in touch with the spirit of creativity and, that kind of inner child. And exploring this new technique has just been a really good time for me. So thank you guys for letting me share it with you. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. It's probably a good place to wrap it up, Stephen, if you don't
I think
mind
so.
if I mention
Yeah.
a couple things. I've got another workshop coming up this fall. We're going to have 2 this year, I think, and that's it. I did the portfolio development 2025. That was over the summer. And we took the story, The Old Man and the Sea, and we redesigned it according to our own, interests and themes. And this fall, we're going to be designing monsters. That's my monster class I teach that goes over the month of October, and only the month of October. It's really short, nice and tight and fun and thematic. And this year's theme is going to be Dino Mutants. I'm a big fan of the Jurassic Park series, Jurassic World series. And the recent movie that came out this summer, Jurassic World Rebirth, had a lot of cool mutant dinosaur designs in it that I'm a big fan of. I mentioned the Mutatosaurus guy, whatever this guy over here. And we're going to be doing some of those of our own. Hopefully some really wild designs. So I hope you'll join me. That begins in October. And again, we have this new tutorial that just released. Pick it up. It's a good deal. It's like 20% off right now on photo bashing and shape carving. Take that tutorial, you will be up to speed in time for the class, and you'll be able to kick ass and make something that you're proud of. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, it was great to get to talk to you guys. Go follow Scott over here on this tag that you see right here. Anything that Scott mentioned, he will post about when like any of those open up again, or if there's some brand new thing that he decides to do that we haven't talked about here because it doesn't exist yet. You should go find out about it. Go follow him. Follow Proko. You'll see plenty more of Scott around here. Thank you again, Scott, for taking the time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Stan.
Have a good
Bye, guys. Take care.